We built a business in a pandemic and then scaled it in a recession. Like, it is not without the most hilarious constant pitfalls. We've changed how we sell. We've changed a whole bunch of different facets of the business just because we've had to.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. Well, we are here with Sarah Stockdale, the founder and CEO of Growclass. Sarah, thanks so much for coming on the show today. For people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
I'm Sarah, as Matt mentioned. I'm the founder of Growclass. We are a growth marketing training program specifically focused on helping women and underrepresented marketers and founders make more money in their businesses and in their careers. So really focused on economic impact of the kinds of things that we teach.
Very cool. So what did you originally go to school for, and what were your plans for a career?
So I went to school. I did English and communications, a language that I already spoke, and then communicating in it, which was a really good use of money and time. And then I did a master's of professional communications, neither of which made me feel prepared for any sort of practical job. So when I graduated, I kind of had two paths in front of me. It was deep in the recession, so there wasn't a ton of opportunity. But I did get an offer at a PR firm, which was a big fancy downtown situation, and a tiny accounting startup that was mostly dudes, all engineers, no money, 3-month contract. And I took the 3-month contract only because I felt like I wasn't equipped really to do anything. And it felt like they would let me learn. Like the startup would give me the space and interesting projects and things to do. Whereas the larger, more established companies, it really felt like more of an internship than a real kind of experience to learn something. So I took the very, very low paid 3-month contract. And that company ended up raising quite a bit of money from Andreessen Horowitz a few months later. That turned into a full-time role, and they were acquired for one of the largest Canadian exits in 2017, which is really just luck. Luck, timing, and taking no money for a learning experience.
Was that a marketing role you were in?
Yeah, it was sort of. They didn't have really a marketing team. It was just a bunch of engineers in a big room at that point. So it was part product marketing, part business development and partnerships, and then part growth. And it became a growth role over time. But they didn't know what they were looking for when they hired me, and I didn't know what I was getting into at all.
So how did you transition from, I guess once they exited, were you out of that company at that point? How did you go from kind of figuring out what you like to do to starting a business in teaching marketing?
Yeah.
Such a
Yeah.
big jump.
So I stayed in that role for a few years and built out the growth team there. I wasn't still on the team when they were acquired, because that would have been quite a long tenure at an early stage startup. I had moved on to a financial technology company in San Francisco and was running international growth, and a very large kind of community program for them. And they were acquired by Airbnb at the same year Wave was acquired, and I was very burnt out. So I took a year and kind of slowly built up a little consultancy, but a lot of what I did was like yoga in the day, like just trying to reset my brain from a couple of tours of duty at really fast moving companies. And when I was at the company was called Tilt. When I was at Tilt, I had gotten the URL and the social handles for Growclass because I kept having to hire marketers. Specifically in Canada, the problem was there weren't a lot of people with experience, the specific kind of growth experience that we were looking for. And so I would hire really high aptitude, just recent graduates, recent university graduates, and we would train them. And some of those folks have gone on to do some incredible things. One of them is the head of community at Webflow. Another one is the VP of growth at Kajabi. They're crushing it. And I just kind of saw the need for this kind of training. And then at the same time, I was also noticing a trend where everyone who is getting really high salaries and really great equity packages at these companies in growth roles were white men. And everyone doing the in the weeds work of growing the businesses were women and underrepresented people, but they were not being compensated for growth roles. They were being compensated for digital marketing roles, which
Mm.
unfortunately and statistically is like a big gap in salary. So, kind of seeing these two things, the need and the demand for marketing talent that specifically had these skills, and this like really crappy gender pay gap, um, led me to run Growclass as an experiment through the consultancy a couple of times before we shut down our client side and switched to full-time education.
That's really awesome. So, did you have any mentors who kind of helped you learn all that marketing stuff? You went from English and communications to learning and doing so well in marketing that you were teaching other people. Like, what helped you with that transformation internally?
A lot of learning by failure, a lot of learning by doing, especially at the first startup, because there weren't a lot of people with a lot of this experience. So just figuring it out at an early stage, and also having investors and an executive team that had really intense growth goals. This was like the age of the 20% month over month standard of growth for these startups. So just pressure, a lot of pressure and not a lot of resources, and figuring it out. And then when I went and worked at Tilt, I saw the difference between a team that was just kind of coming in from any role and figuring it out to a team that had grown and sold multiple uh, multiple tech companies. And so there I had some incredible mentors. We had incredible investors, just like really, really great folks who had done multiple tours of duties of growing these kinds of companies and selling them. And at the same time, when I was building Growclass, I had a friend mentor, um, reach out and offer me membership into a very, very small Slack community that we called the faux workers. So these were the people who we were all kind of growing businesses, and we didn't have coworkers anymore. So we wanted a coworker Slack channel, and just learned an absolute ton about building businesses from those founders, and am still very close with those folks.
Yeah, that's another huge jump going from I'm really good at this, I know how to teach it. Now I'm going to run and grow a business, which is like
Yeah, very different skill sets.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we always say with our business Edge of Cinema. We got into it because we were passionate about creating videos and really good at that. And then like a few years in, it's like being good at that doesn't mean you're good at running a business. So that's where you really need to start bringing in some kind of help. Because like I said, we didn't have family members or anyone like that. You really got to find mentors to help you with that. So what was your
Yeah.
process when you started building out Growclass? Like when did it officially launch? How much prep did you do ahead of time? Did you have a big business plan or?
No, definitely not. We ran Growclass as an experiment. So we had a bunch of clients. We had a pretty fast growing consultancy, but we were a little bit bored. Like I find strategic consulting on the growth side. I was working specifically with Series A stage technology companies. It felt like founder therapy. I was a little bit bored. I missed building something myself and having control of the outcomes. So we launched it as an experiment. It was a Squarespace page. We threw it up. We told our network, "Hey, we're gonna run a 6 week in person course. This is just something that we're doing for the community because we want it to exist." And at the time, there weren't like competitors, really. There wasn't really much out there. And it sold out in 24 hours. And so we were like, okay, there's something here that's interesting. Ran the first cohort, tapped the people that I had learned from, tapped the people that I respected the most, that were practically in the weeds of doing the work, not theoretical or directing people doing the work, like the people who were actually in the tools,
Mhm.
and had them teach, and saw incredible results from that first cohort. Ran it two more times off the side of our consultancy. And in February of 2020, fired all of our consulting clients because we are excellent with timing and can absolutely predict the future. So our kind of in-person course that we were running very quickly went online, and we built that in we had all the content, but we built the online version of it in about 60 days because the business did not have a lot of runway at that point, and it was make or break.
Are you guys still running with mostly online courses? Do you do any in person still?
No, fully online. So we have a hybrid. The way that we think about education is the people that we teach are busy professionals. They can't sit in 3 hour 3-hour lectures in person or online. Like we don't have the attention span collectively anymore, nor does anyone want to do that. So the way that we think about building education is half asynchronous and half in some way in person. So we have all of our lessons are under 15 minutes. We have 6 modules that they can go through asynchronously. The focus is on edutainment, so you're learning, but it's also interesting, fun, not like maybe experiences that folks have had in the past with academic institutions. And then we do an absolute ton of optional live workshops, co-working, accountability sessions, masterminds, and what we call office hours, which are just like workshopping the content. And we run, I actually looked at this the other day. We run like 4 of these live sessions a week, and you get access to them for the whole year. So you can come to whatever makes sense for you throughout the entire year that you joined.
That's super cool. So are you guys continuing to build out new programs as you keep growing? So,
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of going back and making sure that the content is fresh, and then at the same time we're building quite a bit for 2025 because things have been changing and we want to make sure that folks have access to a lot of new tools as well.
yeah. So what are your main course subjects that you guys specialize in right now?
Yeah. So the 6 that are currently part of our certification are growth marketing, which is a kind of experimental marketing, funnels, and how to think through a growth strategy. That's the first module. The second is customer psychology. We read a book. You might be familiar with it, The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick,
I
and
haven't
go
heard it.
through. Oh, it's wonderful. It's
I'll
basically
check it out. Yeah.
the premise of it is most customer interviewing is incredibly biased, mostly because of people pleasing. Like a lot of folks are lying to you because they want to get off the call, they want you to have what you want, but then you end up building the wrong product or running the wrong campaign or having the wrong messaging. So it's a framework of thinking about customer interviewing, building user personas, and making sure, especially in marketing, that like the way your customers talk about their problems is the basis of how you build a marketing strategy. And most people just assume they know and don't do the work up front. So that's week 2. And then we dive into email marketing, conversion copywriting, SEO, and paid ads, which is heavy on Google ads, but we also offer a lot of asynchronous content on Facebook ads. It just changes so often that we do a lot of that live.
Very cool. So who's your target audience for people to take the courses, and what is your guys' strategy for marketing to them?
Yeah, so it's changed quite a bit over the years. The demographics don't really change, but it depends on the economy what the cohorts look like. So a lot of the time, it's mid-career marketing professionals who are feeling a little stuck, feeling like maybe they're underemployed, knowing that they have the skills, but haven't necessarily been given the opportunities to touch all different areas of marketing. So that's one. The other are founders. So we have a ton of folks who come in who are building either small businesses or early stage startups and don't have, like, they're really good at the thing that they're building, but they don't have practical marketing experience. And it's really hard to hire. You end up wasting a lot of money on agencies, wasting a lot of money on junior people, and not really understanding necessarily what your business needs. Oftentimes they come in, they build out their marketing strategy, and then they hire from within the Growclass community. We've actually had people
Right.
hire entire early stage startup teams on the marketing side from within the community, which is really cool.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah. And then we also have, and this was like slightly unexpected, but a lot of more senior executives who have been in more traditional marketing roles. So they work in um, consumer packaged goods, or they work, for some kind of large enterprisey customers or companies, and they just haven't been in the weeds for years, and they've kind of forgotten, they've gotten out of the practical application of some of this stuff, and a lot of them want to go work at tech companies and don't necessarily know if they have the skills. That one was slightly unexpected, and we always love having them in cohorts.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's we run into it all the time. Like some of the older generations they've been in a marketing role, like whatever, they're the marketing director of a pretty big company.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a long time, but they're very behind on the times as far as digital marketing goes and what's available to reach younger audiences. They're kind of stuck in, I guess stuck in their ways is the way to say it, but they have no idea what's available tool wise in like the new age of marketing.
Yeah, and, like, a lot of the time, it's not their fault, like, they've been people leaders for so
Hmm.
long, and they're just relying on their teams to tell them and to help them kind of build those strategies, and they haven't actually been in the weeds of doing that work in so long that it's really easy to get rusty. Like, that's I've education's kind of a lifelong thing, but we especially when we're, making high six figures and feeling really good about an executive career, you kind of forget that, like, you too are your skills are aging, you're getting rusty. Like, how do you get back in the game and make sure that you stay fresh?
Yeah, because it's always shifting, and like I see it in myself sometimes. Like even when AI started like exploding, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we want to dive into that? It's like if you don't, you're going to be left in the dust by everybody else. You have to, It's like
Yeah.
you can't overlook any of that stuff.
No, exactly. We're like right now, OpenAI, if you ask for the list of top marketing courses, they list us. And that's
Really,
gonna
that's
like that's a
awesome.
massive search engine. Like that's where a lot of people are gonna be getting their information. So like if you're not thinking about what we call like AIO or like search in AI tools, like
Yeah,
it's gonna eventually become a problem for you. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but 2026, you're gonna really notice it.
and that's one of those things too. It's like we're still charting the course on how to even rank within an AI's like poll.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like there's really no way to like force
No.
that to happen. You just have to have the content and hope that you were pulled up like you guys. That's amazing that you guys are in there. I guess it's a smaller space, or you guys are just dominating it so hard.
Like a lot of it's just content and training data, right? So if you have a lot of high quality content that's been pulled into training data, like just fingers crossed that that's what's happening right now. But we're going to learn a lot in the next little while. So that's going to be a core focus of my team is making sure that Growclass students are ahead of those curves.
Hmm. Yeah. Are there any challenges you guys have with the business with the course based marketing?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Like
we
any?
we built a business in a pandemic and then scaled it in a recession. Like, it is not without the most hilarious constant, pitfalls. We've changed how we sell, we've changed, a whole bunch of different facets of the business just because 'cause we've had to over the years. We're doing a lot of B2B now. We were primarily B2C until 2023. Um, yeah, we're constantly evolving and figuring it out. There was a huge
So
amount of oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, when you say B2B versus B2C, was that so like a marketer is a B2C person, like, hey, I need to up my skills to possibly get a new job, where B2B is like, hey, your marketing team should take this course.
Yeah,
Is that like,
a combination of corporate and then also, government work. So currently, we're working with the Canadian government. This year, we upskilled 500 underrepresented Canadians and helped them. I think the average salary increase is around $25,000 within 60 days of graduating from the program, which is
that's
mostly
amazing.
network based. It's not like you learn SEO and you immediately make 20K more. It's mostly based
Yeah.
on network and getting people into new roles. So we're doing quite a bit of government work as well as working with helping upskill agency teams. We're doing that right now with a client, and then we still have B2C options available. It's just one of many different ways that we're growing the business.
Are you guys mainly in Canada with all your clients, or is it a pretty big mix? I'm sure there's a plethora of people in the States that are happy to use your guys' services.
Yeah, B2C, it's mostly US. Like B2C, it's mostly US clients. We're over indexing with Canadians this year because of our government work. But for a long, long time, it was our B2C and B2B work was mostly American, because of the size of the size of the opportunity versus we're basically Texas. So we're just the size of the opportunity in the US is much bigger.
Okay, awesome. So, any plans for the future with Growclass? So, would you guys know how big you want to go, where you're going to go, or just keep following the trends as they develop?
We're going to be doing a lot of work with AI in the new year. There's a huge AI adoption gap. There's an AI gender adoption gap. So, specifically, like men who own businesses are much more likely to have adopted AI already than women who own
Hmm.
businesses. And we're a little concerned about what that might look like in the next few years. And there's a lot of good reasons for it. A lot of the time it feels like cheating. Like there's a lot of like ethical complications in how these tools have been built, and there's a lot of hesitation around using them, specifically with the kinds of communities that we serve. So, how do we take into account um, the values that we have as a company, and that the values that the companies that we serve have, but also make sure that they're going to be ahead of the game in the next little while and not fall behind. So, we're going to be doing quite a bit of AI work in the new year, and then a lot of community work as well. So we have about 1,600 folks in our community, and like the numbers aren't that exciting, but about 350,000 messages were sent in Growclass in the last 8 months. It's a very, very active and engaged group of people. So how do we continue to make that more valuable? How do we scale that in a way that is still incredibly beneficial and authentic for our members? And just continue to build out kind of that global reach in our community, and just provide more opportunities for folks. So those are two big things on the horizon in 2025. But we also have a bunch of contracts that we'll have to just make sure happen, and make sure everyone gets the results that they deserve. So it'll be a lot of our focus.
So are some of those government contracts, is that like scholarships you offer to different people?
Yeah.
That's
So
super cool.
the program this year was really cool. It's about 500 scholarships, and majority women and underrepresented people, underrepresented Canadians, a lot of Indigenous Canadians, and just our goal is to help them get through the program, offer them coaching and a whole bunch of different wraparound services to make sure that they have everything they need, and then get them into higher paying jobs.
Awesome. Well, if anybody wants to get a hold of you or check out Growclass, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's just growclass.co, and I'm Sarah Stockdale. You can find me pretty much everywhere. I don't spend a lot of time on X anymore, but everywhere else.
Okay.
Come and say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, Sarah. We're going to have 2 follow-up episodes coming up where we're going to talk a little bit about email marketing and some of that experimental marketing. So stay tuned and we'll learn a little bit more. So thanks again, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.